Hi everyone and welcome to this week's episode. Thank you for tuning in as you always do, and I just want to have a catch up with you all this week regarding a few little things. So as you all know, I've been on holiday in the last week. It was also my birthday as well as our local allotment committee barbecue. So loads I want to fill you in on and loads of little questions I want to answer for you guys, because when I spoke to you briefly about allotment committees before and allotment barbecues and just allotments in general, I had a lot of questions come back to me. So stay tuned for this week's episode and I'm going to try and answer some of those questions as best as I possibly can for you. Okay, so I hope you're all having a lovely summer. The weather here at the moment is very changeable. I went on holiday last week and the weather, in a nutshell, was pretty rubbish. We did manage to avoid the rain for the most part. There is the odd occasion where I was out walking when the rain did get us, and I look very fetching in my waterproof in the middle of August, but what will be will be. But overall I had a really nice time. We just went to a cottage for a week, so it was a really sort of relaxing getaway, no pressure to do anything. We went to a place in Suffolk near Felixstowe, so we were able to sort of do the Suffolk coast and visit a lot of seaside towns while we were there. And yeah, it was really nice. We stayed basically on the side of a lady's farm, and we had donkeys in the back garden and chickens and foxes and a big pond, and we could just walk around when we wanted to, went to the pub when we wanted to, and just generally had a bit of time to unwind and recharge those batteries, which I think we all need to do. Obviously I'm still very anxious about COVID and things like that, so we just decided we'll go somewhere where we are quite literally in the middle of nowhere, and we went to nature reserves as well, which were like a 5-minute walk from where we were staying, and all in all we just had a really restful break. So it was really nice. Come back home to the madness and the mayhem that we always do when you have an allotment. But luckily we came back just in time for the yearly allotment barbecue, which again was really nice. I'll talk to you a bit more about how that all works later on, but all in all, yeah, glad to be home, always glad to be home. But yeah, we were really fortunate just to have a really relaxing time. So what else I'm going to talk to you about this week is allotment committees, depending on how your allotments work. And I've had sort of a few questions about generally getting into allotmenting, because since COVID happened, I don't know if it's all been the same for you guys. If it has, you can obviously let me know in the comments below, but allotments have been basically impossible to get hold of, because a lot of people were off work, they were furloughed, even issues in some areas of the country with supplying fresh fruit and vegetables, because of the lorries and things like that, and people were actually turning to their allotment to making sure they could produce their own. So there have been a lot of allotment related questions in terms of getting into having an allotment, so I thought I'd just answer a few of those in today's episode. In terms of getting into having an allotment, I got mine in 2018. Yes, 2018. Sort of halfway through the year, so I missed the first year really to do too much apart from sort of get it ready, but that time was sort of really well appreciated actually. I didn't have the pressure of thinking, oh my god, I need to get things planted within the first couple of weeks or months. It was very much a case of, by the time it was all sorted and looked lovely and how I wanted it to look, we were coming into the end of the season. So that gave me a lot of planning time, which worked really well. But in terms of how I got my allotment, where I live, they are council run allotments. So basically there wasn't a choice for me. There are what we call private allotments where you can approach the person that owns the land to have some of that to use for an allotment, or there are council run, which from what the research I've done, is the most common. There are a fair few privately rented areas for allotments, but it seems that council-led ones are definitely the most popular. So what you can do is get in touch with your local council, and they usually have someone not dedicated to allotments, but there will be someone within the council that deals with allotments, and they can give you an idea on how to go about it, sort of pricing as well, and what's included, and if there aren't any available plots at that time, to put your name on a waiting list. Now for our site, the town where I live, there are 3 allotment sites. Obviously I'm on one and there's another 2, and when I got my allotment there were vacancies on all 3, so we were really lucky that we could pick the one closest to where we lived. But since COVID and lockdown, like I said, there have been several people that we sort of see coming and walking around the allotments, sort of waiting for a plot now, because they were basically taken over so quickly and there was just nothing available to anybody. So there are a few people that have started to give them up now. So there are spaces becoming available, and we're starting to see lots of new faces, which is really nice, especially in the summer. And yeah, a lot of people are sort of taking over sort of the plots that were maybe just seen as a novelty by some. I don't mean that in a bad way, but for those people that just had them for a year over COVID, some of them have sort of said, oh, it's too much for me, I'm gonna now give it up, etc, etc. So the best thing you can do is approach your council if they're council run. If not, go approach the person that is the landowner. If you are going to look privately though, make sure you get a written up contract that tells you what you can and can't do and what is expected of you if you have an allotment that is run privately. I can't speak for how that works, but looking on Facebook groups quite regularly, you do see that people fall out with their landowner, or they decide to sell the land on without giving much notice, and there's all sorts of loopholes and weird and wonderful things. So just make sure if you are going to rent privately from a landlord that you get a contract and make sure you know what you're getting involved with. So when I applied for my allotment, I was given a map of all the site, and each vacant plot was coloured in, which then let us go up to the site and walk around and decide which plot would be best for us out of the ones that were vacant. We were very lucky, we got a choice of around 10 at the time, and we obviously picked the one that we did. The cost for our allotment, which is, we have a plot and a half, and we pay £40 a year for our allotment plot. That does come with running water, no electricity and no toilets, which I didn't realise there were allotments with toilets, but apparently we're just really behind the times in Norfolk, and now apparently loads of allotment sites have toilets, but I didn't know that. I'm obviously very, very behind. So we had a walk round. I then spoke to the council and said that, we had decided on the plot that we'd liked, and it was just a case of signing a contract from the council that basically stated obviously all the rules. So we have rules around how many birds you can have and livestock you can have. We also have rules on how many trees you can have on a plot. So we have rules for, like, we can only have 8 trees, we can only have, I think it's 20 chickens, something like that. Not abusing the water system and using sprinklers all the time. And to be honest with you, the rules are very, very reasonable. They are, they're fine. There's nothing on them that, I think is unfair or unreasonable. So once you do that, all you do is pay for your year, or however much you've got left of that year. They'll obviously work it out. Then we got given our key for the main gates to get in, because obviously they're locked by all the allotment users every day, and that was pretty much it. We were left to it. I do believe that the council do come round now and then to do inspections on the plot, though we've never had any issues, never had any trouble, and we've actually, in the 3 years we've had the plot now, we've never even seen anyone from the council. So we must be doing things right. So I'm not going to complain too much. But all in all, that's how we got our allotment, and that is how we sort of made the decision on which one to go for. Always try and stay near to a tap if you can. That was our one big sort of drawback with the plot that we picked. It's in full sun pretty much all the time. It's in a prime position where it doesn't get hit by too much wind, but the tap is really far away. So every time we want to water or fill up the water butts, we have to walk a good 80 metres with a hose pipe, which was quite pricey by the time you've paid for that much hose pipe just to fill up the water butts. So that's something maybe you want to consider as well. If you aren't good in full sun, even though it's great for crops, look at plots that maybe have a little bit more shade. Also look at where your plot would be on a hill position, because if it rains, water obviously will run downhill, and if you're right at the bottom of the hill, you're likely to be the one that ends up with a bit of a boggy allotment. So just bear that in mind too. So we went for full sun, near enough the top of the hill. We're just almost, it's not really a hill, it's just a gradual gradient, but I'd say we're about here, so we don't get too much wind because we're not right at the top, and we definitely don't get flooding or water issues because we're nowhere near the bottom. But like I say, the sacrifice we make is we have to walk so far to get water. But when we weighed it up, that's what I decided. Plus our plot had a shed on it already when we got there as well, so that was another win. So just, think about the things you're going to want, you're going to need, what's important to you when you have an allotment, and use all of those things to weigh up your decision. The only other thing I wanted to talk to you about was obviously allotment committees. Now, not all allotments will have committees. From the people that I know and speak to regularly, I am the only one that has an allotment committee. All of our other sites don't. People say their swings and roundabouts as well, because if you have an allotment committee and you have an issue, you can approach the committee and say, what are we going to do about this? For example, if we had break-ins on our allotments a couple of years ago, luckily ours wasn't broken into, but the committee then go and report things to the police, they stay in touch with the police, and they regularly chase things up and make sure actually everyone's doing what they need to be doing. They obviously host committee get-togethers so you can get to know people on your allotment site. So we will have an awards ceremony where you get given awards for like best new plot or most colourful plot or best multiple plot for people that have more than one. All sorts of weird and wonderful things, and they do an afternoon tea, and it is just a great way to pull the community together in the allotments, especially when you have new people that don't really know anyone. Allotment sites are big. I mean, our allotment site has probably got, I would say, it's got to be pushing 100 plots. So when we're at one end and there's a new person that's started right down the other end, potentially you're not even going to know them or who they are. So it's brilliant having a committee, because we do have all these social events that we can sort of meet new people and get involved in, and it's really, really nice. Having a committee, everyone also shares their fruit and veg. So when everyone's got loads of courgettes, we have a bench where we leave things so anyone can go and help themselves, and then you do the same when you're overrun with something, and then everyone gets a bit and everyone shares, which is really nice. Last week as well, they like to get the children involved, so while all the adults were sat outside having the barbecue, the children were all doing a scarecrow building competition. So the allotment site, by the time we'd finished, was absolutely littered with scarecrows, and it looked brilliant. It looked really, really good. So there are definitely advantages and disadvantages to having a committee. We've been quite lucky in that we haven't really seen the disadvantages. People have told me that committees can get quite intrusive and invasive. They can be very quick to tell you when they don't like something you're doing, or if you've got a few weeds because you haven't been up to the allotment, they'll be quick to send you a letter to say you need to sort your allotment out. And things like that. So let me know your stories. If you've got an allotment committee, tell me if you get on with them or if you don't get on with them, and tell me your stories down below. But we've been very fortunate in that we haven't got any negative yet things to report about our allotment committee. So I hope that helped. I hope that gave you some idea about allotment committees, and the social aspect of it is great. I mean, you eat so much food and so much cake. It's just fantastic. And the cat has just jumped on the table. Hey. God only knows. This is Willow. If you haven't all seen her before, she's a nosy Parker. Nosy. But she distracted me now. But yeah, let me know your stories, and if you haven't got an allotment yet, let me know if you are successful and you managed to get one. I'm really fascinated to find out. I hope you've all had a lovely week. I hope you've all had some time to get up to your allotment and the weather's been good for you, and I hope you all have a little bit of time to relax and unwind as well. But that is pretty much it from me this week. Look after yourselves, look after each other, and as always, make sure you stay safe. You can follow me on Facebook and Instagram if you want to see more of my content, and I will see you all very soon. Take care. Bye.